Alright guys, we have plenty of talking points to discuss in today's video, all of the matches from this weekend to go over, and we also have a full fixture list coming up in midweek, which we will be predicting in the second half of today's video, so make sure to stick around for that and do get your midweek predictions down below. But without any further ado, let's hop into the action. Starting out with Friday night's game, and what a game we had in the end. Stoke 3, Blackburn 2. Wasn't expecting much of a spectacle in this one, have to be honest, but yeah, maybe we're finally getting a little bit of consistency out of this Stoke side now. 5 goals they put past Sunderland in the last week, 3 past Blackburn here, and first half they were absolutely fantastic. Smallbone pulling the strings to them in that number 10 role again, Over popping up in the right place for the opening 2 goals, and then Campbell with a slamming finish to make it 3. They did do sort of their best attempt to nearly throw this one away late on, as Blackburn did pull it back to 3-2 with goals from Brereton and Gallagher, but over the course of the full 90, I think Stoke richly deserved this one. Blackburn not quite their usual selves, and this does sort of go against their game plan of how we've seen them be recently, keeping games, you know, very tight. Usually it's been them who tend to strike first in the match, but dare I say it, Blackburn have got probably a decent chance to bounce back in midweek with their home game against Reading, you know, against the Reading side, who haven't been great lately. And Stoke have quite a few big tests coming up. Their next 3 games looking particularly tricky against Middlesbrough, Norwich and Coventry, but based on how they've played over these last 2 matches, who's to say they can't give those games a real good go? Then to Ashton Gate for Bristol City 2, Blackpool 0, a good way for Bristol City to bounce back and get back to winning ways. A richly deserved 3 points in the end. I thought first half was really all Bristol City. I know that Blackpool had that one breakout chance with Yates going through, but he completely fumbled the finish. And the problem this Blackpool side has at the moment is that when they do concede first in the match, it's really difficult to see how they get back into it with how deep they've been setting up recently. Obviously played to their advantage in that goalless draw against Burnley, but when someone like Andy Vyman pulls out a quality finish as he did in the second half, it was really hard to tell how Blackpool were going to then go ahead and get back into that game. Andy Vyman sort of been the forgotten man at Bristol City this season, I think, because of the numbers he posted last season compared to this. We've not quite been having those same conversations about him, but that strike was a real reminder of his quality. And then Alex Scott, someone who we've been banging the drum for over these last few months, with a fine finish to then make it 2-0 Bristol City. So yeah, Blackpool, like I said previously, I struggle to see them getting out of this situation now. Since McCarthy took over, across the 10 championship matches Blackpool have had, they've won just 1 of them, and they've scored just 5 goals in that time. And it was a much needed result at Birmingham this weekend, 2-0 against Rotherham, more so to boost the mood and morale around the club, more so than anything really. But it was a lightning fast start from Blues in this one. Rida Kadra with a real moment of quality, cutting inside from that left hand side. And to be fair, it is worth remembering, despite how inconsistent this Blues squad has been over these last couple of months, there are still several players in that squad who are capable of popping up with some real moments of quality. So yeah, not much Rotherham could have done about that one. Second goal on the other hand, I think it's a really disappointing one, especially from Rotherham's point of view, how they want to be strong from those sort of defending set-piece situations, and yeah, really sloppy goal to concede, and they were a little bit under par in that first half. Second half we got an improvement, and there was quite a big penalty appeal which was waved away for Rotherham. Had that have been given, they pull it back to 2-1, suddenly it might be a little bit of a different game, but Birmingham were able to stamp out any sort of comeback after that point, and yeah, a bit of a disappointing one on the road there for the Millers. Burnley 3, Wigan 0 was probably the most predictable result from the weekend. I think we all envisioned this one being a little bit of a write-off for Wigan, especially when they went down to 10 men after 28 minutes. Yeah, not great from Rekic for 2 bookable offences, especially in quite close proximity one another. Burnley were always going to have a stroll of it, I think, after that point. They'd already gone 1 down by that point, Teller putting them ahead. He bagged the second before Lyle Foster got in on the act in the second half, but all the statistics very much show this one was a little bit of a breeze for Burnley in that second half. Wigan not registering a shot at all in the second 45 minutes, and once again, similar to a lot of the other Burnley home matches, I think this one could have been a lot more destructive, but they sort of got into their flow eventually, and were happy to sort of play around with Wigan a little bit. Coventry against Hull ended level. I was tempted to predict a draw for this one. I just sided with Coventry in the end, but Hull on the road especially capable of putting in a good battling performance. And I think they got that on the road from Rossinia's men in this one. Coventry, I think the better side in that first 45 minutes, and probably quite frustrated to have not gone in at half-time at least one up, but that Hull back line along with Darlow standing really strong, and as they have been under Rossinia consistently since he took over, really strong and stable at the back. It was a cracking finish then to give Hull the lead in the second half. Estupinian with that belting effort going into the top corner. Coventry do manage to work a bit of magic though and get back into it. Great work from Gyökeres in the build up to this one, just pulls it across then for Mike Garden to make it 1-1, and then they can't go on and squeeze that winner from afterwards. So not the worst point in the world, but I feel like Coventry maybe see that as a bit of a missed opportunity. Preston up against Cardiff. I think this sort of game was always going to hinge on whoever went ahead and scored the first goal. First half of this one was your typical sort of championship scrap fest where the quality in the final third wasn't really quite there for either team. Second half did start to open up a little bit more though, and Cardiff, to be fair, did have some decent chances to grab that opening goal, but Freddie Woodman excellent in net for North End, and in the end it was Tommy Cannon coming up with that moment of quality. Nice ball clipped forward from Greg Cunningham. Bit of suspect defending, I have to say, from Cardiff, but fair play to Cannon. Over these last few weeks especially, I think he's been our most lively outlet in the final third, and even when he's not been scoring, his energy and pace and willingness to try and get in behind I think has been a useful asset. Bizarrely enough, Cardiff have their goalkeeper sent off for 2 consecutive matches running. Obviously Allsop was suspended for this one. Alnwick then gets the red card in this one, and Ched Evans makes it 2 just a few moments after that. So yeah, decent win for North End there. This unbeaten run starting to gather a little bit of momentum now, albeit I still think we've got a ways to go until we are that side that's clicking like Ryan Lowe wants us to be. But yeah, for Cardiff it's some big matches they've got coming up. They've got a match in midweek to mitigate against West Brom, and then after that their next 3 fixtures see them going up against Rotherham, Swansea and Blackpool. That's a huge month for them. If any side in the Championship needed a result this weekend though, it was QPR, and they finally got that first win over the line for Ainsworth, and their first win in the calendar year of 2023 in the Championship as well. It's been some time that the QPR fans have been waiting. Well taken goal, to be fair, for QPR, who started this game on the offensive, trying to get in the faces of Watford players. And once again, from a Watford point of view, with this being Wilder's first game in charge, a lot of the similar problems that plagued Bilic towards the end also persisting in this one, looking like sort of a team of individuals that are reliant on João Pedro to conjure up something in the final third. To be fair to Pedro, individually so, looked like he had a really good game in this one, completed 10 successful dribbles, a record for the Championship this season. Ultimately, nothing to show for it though, as the rest of the quality just wasn't there in that Watford squad for this one. But good battling, clean sheet for QPR in the end, and who knows, maybe this is the start of something for them to start to turn a corner under Ainsworth. Reading up against Millwall was the perfect Gary Rowett away performance, really. They got themselves into that leading position via the penalty which Lumley had given away, and from that point onwards there was never really much of a threat that Reading would actually get back into this game. It's another match where the full 90's gone and Reading have failed to have a shot on target. That's now 2 of the last 3 Championship matches where that's happened to Reading, and the lack of any sort of attacking intent was, yeah, really quite scary from a Reading perspective in this one. There were no real fears that Millwall would go ahead and blow this one and throw it away, really. We did mention about Millwall as well, and quite a promising run of fixtures that they had coming up after that Norwich defeat. Next up games against Swansea and Huddersfield, another good opportunity to string together back-to-back wins, I'd say. And Sheffield United really needed a result and performance this weekend, and they didn't get it when they needed it most, as Luton escaped from Bramall Lane with all 3 points. Luton played this one perfectly, defended well, frustrated Sheffield United, forced them into a few mistakes, and when their chance came along, they took it. Colton Morris linking up with Adebayo for the opening goal, which was enough to give them all 3 points in the end. You could tell the frustration at Sheffield United boiling over a little bit, fan base, players on the pitch. Billy Sharp got very lucky to escape a red card for a little bit of a whack on Tom Lockyer. I think that a retrospective ban will probably be coming his way. Similar sort of thing happened with North End earlier on in the season. season with Ched Evans when he wasn't punished in the game, but retrospectively after the match was handed a 3-match ban. That's not what Sheffield United need at the moment, and it's going to be a little bit of a weird mood in the camp at the moment, I imagine. They are still second, but Middlesbrough continually narrowing down that gap. They're back in Championship action on the Monday, and then they got the FA Cup to think about at the weekend as well. Whether or not that will prove to be a welcome distraction or it'll continue to throw them off their flow a little bit, I'm not so sure. But in terms of the top 6 for Luton and automatic race for Sheffield United, that result right there could have huge consequences come the end of the season. And this one was pretty much the ideal weekend for Middlesbrough fans. All 3 points against Swansea, Sheffield United dropping points, and that gap at the top once again closed between Middlesbrough in 3rd and Sheffield United in 2nd. Boro had to work to get back into this one though. We mentioned the problems that Swansea have had recently coming into this game, but to be fair, on that first half showing, I think it was a much improved performance from Swansea in terms of being a little bit more willing to give up the ball, being a bit more harrying off the ball, and actually crafting out some decent chances. Boro giving them the opener, but in the second half it was Middlesbrough's clinical ability which was just the difference between these two. Some nice finishes. Ramsey does really well for the first one, poking finish in. Archer then to beat the offside trap for the second, and then it's a poor penalty to give away for the third goal, which Akpom goes ahead and puts away. Middlesbrough fans, it's going to be an interesting few weeks, particularly with the Blades not playing next weekend because they're in FA Cup action. If Middlesbrough can win their next 2 matches against Stoke and Preston, they'll be in a really healthy position to apply all sorts of pressure to Sheffield United. Important win for West Brom, who've made it back-to-back 1-0 wins in the Championship with all 3 points against Huddersfield. What's been the general template of each of the managers who have gone in at clubs down at the bottom of the Championship, thinking of Warnock at Huddersfield, Mick McCarthy in at Blackpool and Maloney in at Wigan, has been trying to shape them up defensively, but as a consequence of that, there's such little attacking threat from those 3 sides that are currently in the bottom 3 at the moment that it is tough to envisage any of them putting any sort of run together here where they can string together, you know, back-to-back wins and get a few goals in their side, because from an attacking standpoint, Huddersfield really didn't offer a lot in this one. It was a penalty in the end, which was the decider between these two, John Swift sticking it away after, a little bit of a silly one that was given away by Huddersfield. But for West Brom's top 6 hunt, important 3 points here, considering in midweek they've got another quite winnable game coming up against Cardiff. Quite feasibly could be 3 wins on the bounce for them. And then finishing things off for the weekend at Carrow Road with Sunderland picking up all 3 points. Just when you think you've got a read on a team like Norwich with the run they've been on previously, and a result like this goes ahead and pops up. But such is the nature of the Championship. And in the end, I think it really deserved 3 points for Sunderland. Thought they played this one brilliantly, pressed Norwich at the right moment and had the better chances. You know, could have been more than one for Sunderland in the end if it wasn't for Angus Gunn. Bar with a terrific finish for the opener after 15 minutes. And I mean, even look at the match stats, Norwich having 72% of the ball and 17 shots to Sunderland's 11, but certainly how the game panned out doesn't feel like those statistics sort of back up the overall narrative of how Norwich played in this one. Nothing quite seemed to click for them in the final third, and they'll be hoping to write this one off as just a little bit of a one-off maybe. Decent opportunity to bounce back midweek with the game against Huddersfield. I particularly think games like this could come back to haunt Norwich, as the month of April especially is looking quite tricky for them fixture-wise. Well guys, there we have it. Those were all the matches we had going on in the Championship over the weekend. Do leave your thoughts down below. Interested at your take on all the matches that did take place this weekend. But before we do wrap up today's video, we have some midweek score predictions to dive into. Tough one to call straight off the bat. Blackpool against QPR. The QPR establish a little bit of consistency now, and can Blackpool pick up their momentum from anywhere at the moment? I think I'm edging towards a draw in that one. Blackpool managed to get a shutout of Burnley last time at Bloomfield Road. They've not got many goals in them at the moment, but I'm going to go for a 1-1, I think, between those two. Millwall against Swansea. I think Millwall are the obvious favourites coming into this one. While there were some signs of life from Swansea in their game against Middlesbrough, particularly the first half, I just think a good regimented Millwall side probably gets the better of them there, so I'm going to go 2-0 Millwall. Rotherham up against Preston. Preston on a decent, unbeaten run at the moment. Still feel there are a few chinks in our armour which can be hit at, and obviously Rotherham will be looking to bounce back from quite a disappointing display last time. think I'm going to go for a draw in that one. 1-1er, wouldn't surprise me there. Watford against Birmingham, also feeling along a similar path there actually. Watford, really tough to nail down at the moment. It was a disappointing first outing for Wilder. Does he get an instant impact there? I'm going to go 1-1 between them and Birmingham. Birmingham do have a few players who could hurt them. Wigan up against Coventry, going to go 2-0 Coventry. Think they were quite disappointed not to win that game against Hull over the weekend. The amount of chances I see them creating compared to that Wigan side, just think they'll have a bit too much in the tank. Middlesbrough up against Stoke is actually quite a tricky game to call. Certainly a lot harder to call now than it was a few weeks ago because of this recent run of form and these last couple of performances that Stoke have put in. I've liked what I've seen from them, but this Middlesbrough side at the moment just feels like they could be on a different level. So I'm going to go 2-1 Middlesbrough, but I wouldn't be that shocked if Alex Neil does pull off something there. Blackburn up against Reading. This does feel like a decent opportunity for Blackburn to bounce back from last time, so I'm going to go 1-0 Blackburn in that game. Cardiff up against West Brom. West Brom just about getting the job done recently against the sides down near the bottom of the Championship, and I feel like this will be another one of those games. Going to go 2-0 West Brom in that game. Huddersfield up against Norwich. Norwich will be keen to bounce back from that quite disappointing showing against Huddersfield. The fixture works out fairly well for them in this case. I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich in that game. Struggle to see Huddersfield picking up much at the moment. Hull up against Burnley. Really like the look of Hull at the moment, but Burnley just on a different level. Going to go 2-0 Burnley in that game. Luton against Bristol City. Another fairly tricky game to call. Bristol City capable of taking points off anyone in the Championship when they are on form. Vyman returning to form with that strike against Blackpool and Alex Scott as well. With that being said though, I'm just going to back Luton there for a 2-1 home victory with that home advantage. Finishing things off then with Sunderland against Sheffield United. Every game on Sheffield United at the moment seems intensified in terms of the pressure, particularly with Middlesbrough continuing to win. And this is another bit of a banana skin fixture, not an ideal one when you want all 3 points. And I think I'm going for a 1-1er in there, which isn't great for Sheffield United at the moment and keeping Middlesbrough off their back. But those are my predictions for how I see the games going in midweek. Do leave your thoughts down below. And there we have it guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, get your thoughts and predictions down below for midweek, and I'll see you all in the next one.